Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Cloud Architects Podcast. I'm Chris Goosen, I'm in Australia, and I'm joined today by Nicholas Blank.
Hello, I'm here in Cape Town.
Warren DeToy.
I'm here in Johannesburg, and it is freezing.
And you know what? This is a cool episode today because we have only 2 time zones to worry about, which makes it great. End of the work week for us. Joined by our guest, and I'm sure a lot of folks will know the Twitter name, right? UCMadScientist. I'm sure there's a ton of people that have kind of followed your exploits over time. But James, welcome to the show. And for those people who don't know you, do you mind giving a quick introduction of who you are and what you do?
Sure. Thanks for having me on. So yes, another Australian here, but I'm from the better, not capital city, which is Melbourne. So my name's James. I've been working in the UC&C field for 15 odd years now. I started out as a young sprout doing Exchange installs and moved on from there and into Link and Skype for Business, and now looking after Microsoft Teams deployments with both telephony and meeting rooms and that sort. So that's basically what I've been doing outside of work. I'm a dad of 4 kids. So if you hear anyone running around in the background, that's that. Pretty busy guy.
Yes, it seems that way, and I think that's really the theme of the episode, right? Is let's look at Teams. Let's talk about a little bit about Teams and kind of where Teams is today, right, where we find ourselves, because I think we've seen this like ridiculous takeoff of Teams in the last couple of years with work from home and stuff like that, and I forget the exact numbers, but I think it's something like over 300 million monthly active seats at this point. We're seeing a lot. I'm curious because I'm not really spending a lot of time working in the Teams space at the moment, so curious about what customers are doing with Teams. How are they using it? Are we seeing an uptake in telephony? And then, anyone who follows you knows that you tend to kind of go a little bit out of the box for things, and your blog is super entertaining to read when you look at things like running Doom or Duke Nukem on an SBC and setting fire to a handset. So I'm sure we'll get to the mad scientist part of things in a little bit. But what sort of projects you've been working on? What are you seeing in general with customers? What's hot in the Team space right now?
Well, look, to be honest, I'm a bit biased. So I work for a very large carrier here in Australia. So if you don't know, they're Telstra, and so I'm doing lots of telephony. That's basically all I do these days is telephony and meetings. So I'm very into that communication space. But we are seeing a fair bit of natural adoption of Teams without consultants like myself or external partners coming in, where people are they've got Teams, it's enabled. They start to spread their wings because obviously everything's on by default. And then they go, okay, cool, Teams can do some of this. And then they engage a partner. I want an app that does this, or I want to do telephony, or I want to integrate this with our SharePoint. So I've seen some rather cool integrations with SharePoint that are making Teams a lot more powerful for that particular business because it's so customizable. But also, seeing a lot of competition against, Zoom 8x8, all the other hosted PBX providers where, people are ripping out their legacy box on the wall PBX and going to Microsoft Teams because they don't have to worry about anything. In that regard, I've had clients that have, they've been kicked out of buildings because of chemical scares and stuff like that. They've not had to worry because their phones just keep functioning, even if the power's turned off, everything, because it's all in O365. So that's keeping them really happy and really engaged. And that sort of that space is that ability to, pardon the expression, to just pay your Office 365 invoice and phones work. I'm quite renowned for saying, email can stop working for 5 minutes and not much will happen, but if phone stop working for 5 minutes, you'll know about it. And, with this push from decentralizing everything and pushing it into the cloud, Teams has obviously really been designed from that ground up to handle calling. And it's also, I suppose, it's changed the way that people think about calls. Like in a telephony sense, I'm pretty old. I still think about phone numbers and things like that. But a lot of people don't think about phones like that anymore. they just want to speak to someone. So they punch their name into whatever app, whether it be Teams or Facebook Messenger or whatever, and iMessage, and make a call. So that paradigm shift away from a telephone number, and that's my number, to just being able to reach out to someone on whatever platform and expect that they'll answer. That's what we're seeing a lot of these days, and that's why you'll see things like Teams is now included in Windows 11, because you should just be able to reach someone by just knowing them. You shouldn't have to know some magic number, right?
So I feel like that's a really interesting point. I mean, are we seeing, traditionally, and I spent a lot of my formative years in the sort of telco space as well, right? My dad just retired this year, but until he retired, he was, he spent his entire career in the telco world. So PBX systems and, data wiring and stuff is something that I grew up with, right? And you always had this sense of, well, for one, it was way different back then, because when you moved offices, you needed to call a tech to come in and reprogram your extension so that, it could follow you to your new office. Now, we don't have that problem anymore. But we've always had this kind of concept of like, when you call a number or you call a business, you get to a switchboard operator who then directs your call. Are we seeing, is that paradigm also changing? Are we seeing like people or businesses moving away from that now to more of a direct contact model?
I mean, look, there's still a lot of contact center stuff around. There's still a lot of switchboard stuff around, and the Microsoft Teams market has been a little slow to catch up to where we were in Skype for Business in regards to that. There's offerings from, for example, Landis Computer. Landis was an ex-MVP. He's come out with a solution for Teams that lets you have an operator solution. But if you've only got a couple of seats, then the stuff that's built in is fantastic. Otherwise, you can bolt in Azure Communication Services now, and you can have AI-driven stuff. I've seen really cool concepts, and this was Matt, where someone calls a switchboard and says, "Hi, I want to speak to Chris Goosen," and straight away the operator's on the phone, and the application has already brought up what it thinks the contacts that person wants to transfer to, because it's used voice recognition and AI. Natural language speaking through Azure to surface that to the operator, and the operator goes, "Yeah, cool, I'll put you through." Click. They haven't had to search for anything. They haven't had to do anything, but it removes that, automated OVR thing where it's, "I'd like to speak to Chris Goosen," and it was like, "I heard Chris Goosen." You've still got that human touch, but that's just sped up with AI, and that stuff's really exciting to me. People are worried that we're going to replace everything, and I feel that's not the case. I feel that we're just going to enhance things, make people more efficient at what they do or better at what they do, so they can do other things that they should be doing that aren't automatic, aren't replaceable.
But it's been a bumpy road, though. Like, if we have to think of Teams, 3-4 years ago, like somewhere around there. Where direct routing, I don't want to offend anybody in Australia, when direct routing sort of like just sort of came into the market, and you didn't even have media bypass at that point in time. It was like new, right? So media bypass sort of didn't exist, and then all the codecs and things, and I think in some ways we have to thank guys like Audio Codes, and what was the other dudes?
They're called Ribbon now, but they used to be Sonus.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So, and they sort of paved the way for it because they worked so closely with Microsoft so that they could make the solution work as best they could. And like when you had survivable branch appliances from a Skype for Business perspective, I mean, if something went down, things were cool, things carried on routing, but they never and then slowly but surely things started progressing. I mean, you didn't even have an admin panel inside of Teams to manage that direct routing component. And then the next thing you sort of did, and a lot of the translation and the regular expressions for which type of SBC supported which numbers and things was all done manually on the SBC, and it took forever. And like now you look at it and it's like you got a wizard, and there's like a Teams wizard, and it says, "Are you doing this? Yes. Are you doing that? No. Are you doing this? Yes." Boom, bang, spits out a config and thanks very much for coming. And then now you've got this whole operator connect side of things, which is really cool, because now it said, okay, well, if you're in a backwards place like our country in South Africa, where it took 25 years for them to approve Microsoft as a telco, which has still got certain provisions in it, right? You can say, okay, well, in Vodacom, will you just do an operator connect for me, charge the minutes, and then boom, shakalak, thanks very much for coming. And that's taken a very, very long time to happen. And like, people were getting frustrated because they were like, okay, I've got a 10-user org, and I would like to use your minutes, but I can't because I'm sitting at the end of the world somewhere here. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it has taken some time for that. And then the handsets needed to change. And then Avaya got somewhere in the mix, and the integration where they've written all these old Java applets and things. I mean, Azure Communication Services is easy compared to that stuff. Call centers are now starting to change, right? And it has taken a while, but it's actually incredible to see how they've been able to like lift a big fat Avaya into the cloud. That's pretty cool.
So
yeah,
but
and
no, go ahead. Go ahead. I was going to say, but so are you saying? So one thing you're saying is it's easier to config this than ever before, right?
Yeah.
But are we seeing organizations going to Microsoft and buying their numbers and their minutes from Microsoft, or are we seeing more of the bring your own, whatever you used to have on premises, and start direct connecting or direct routing that?
I think it depends on the region. I think it depends on the country you're in. I think, you know, like, I don't foresee Microsoft dropping any sort of like minute presence in places like Africa or whatever the case would be is, but you know, there's a big drive at the moment to bring African countries. I mean, Satya Nadella now thinks that Africa is the next thing, right? Africa is going to be the next big ticket. So let's get as many African countries, because they're starting to pump, right? If you look at the economies of Kenya, and Ghana, and those sorts of places, they're starting to pump. But from Microsoft's perspective, there has to be some sort of a return on investment. They're not going to just drop DCs and points of presence just straight away. There has to be all sorts of business cases and things like that. So I think depending on the region is where you'll get those sort of services. So I think like there's a bigger market for Operator Connect in countries like ours, whereas perhaps maybe in the States, probably not even really. I mean, I don't even think people care. You know, they'll just go to Microsoft, click the buy button, and they'll get some minutes.
And we have something here in Australia through Telstra, right?
Yeah.
That's a little different to everywhere else in the world.
Correct.
Yeah, so we're one of, Australia and Japan are one of are the only two countries that have their own bespoke solution, and that's being phased out. So Australia, we're moving to Operator Connect as well, even with Telstra. So Operator Connect is available for Australia today. Telstra has just finished rolling it out as well for their customers, but it's been available with other carriers too. And I think that's the real big thing about Operator Connect is you buy your numbers, you buy your minutes from the carrier, and Microsoft doesn't have to be involved. And I think that's one of the things that was the struggle when Microsoft first started rolling out, you know, Skype for Business Online and then Teams, was that they wanted to be a carrier. And I think it's great, you know, more choice is better. But then obviously each country, each region has their own requirements. So like 911 works differently in the States. For example, you dial 911 in your local city in America and you go to a call center in your suburb almost. Yeah. In Australia, we have 3 call centers that handle most of the country. Victoria's different because we're special. But you know, it's completely different. And I imagine it's different in South Africa, and I imagine it's different in all sorts of parts of the world. And suddenly Microsoft has to deal with all this red tape and you know, legal hold and lawful intercept and all these sorts of things that they've never had to worry about before. And that's where Operator Connect came in really beautiful, where they're like, look, we'll hand you a connection to our PBX, you know, here's our wire. The vendor can then just slide in with their minutes and their numbers, and we'll facilitate the connection between the two of you. Great. We'll take a clip off the top for our user using our PBX service, and Microsoft makes their money with very low cost of investment. And it's great for your mum and dad shops. Small businesses are massive here in Australia. We're very separate from like America and whatnot, where big orgs rule everything. A mum and dad shop with 20 users can be a national brand. And so when you turn around and say, well, it's going to cost you $20,000 in SBCs and professional services to get 10 users online, they balk at you. And that's where Operator Connect is really giving them that option, because you don't have to have a contract with a massive carrier. You don't have to buy a piece of tin that you're never going to use for anything else, or you're never going to see the money back on. You just, go to your carrier, whichever they are. I obviously can't mention any because I work for one. And, hey, do you support Office 365? Yes, we do. Cool. Go to the portal, click on it. Someone will be in touch. Bang, you've got minutes. You're done. You're sorted. It makes life so much simpler. Where the complexity these days comes in is like you were saying, dial plans, the Teams admin portal. So Jamie Stark at No More Phones on Twitter, he used to be extremely big and vocal. He's been in Link and Skype for the longest time. He runs the Teams admin portal team now, and he's done so much work behind the scenes to try and get that to be as smooth and as elegant as possible. There was a refresh to it. I think it was about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, for GA people, and it's brilliant. Everything is so simple and so easy to configure now. As for dial plans, go to ucdialplans.com. That's well and truly done. Any dial plan that you need built or anything, just get the Hoff to build it for you. Ken Lesko has built a brilliant website. You upload some data, you tell it what part of the world you're in, what part of the world that your offices are in. It'll build all your dial plans for you. Nice PowerShell script. Bang, just configured. You don't have to worry about it ever again.
And that's been going. He's had that going for a while now, since Skype days.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Since Link. So it used to be called linkdialplans.com. And I'm well and truly sure I owe Ken more than a couple of beers for using that website. I've been using.
Oh yeah, I used it a lot as well.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm familiar with it. So Greg Sheridan, who I think you know, Greg and I used to sit next to each other at work, and I know even Greg's a big fan of that site. I used to see him on there all the time. So we should eventually just get go and collect all the debt for Ken. When we see him again, just go, here's all your 6 slabs of beer, because that's pretty much what he's probably worth to you from just a few of us. Yeah.
I make sure to drop him a couple of bucks on the donate link every now and again. I feel if he's saving me, a day of sitting in regex101.com, you should probably get something for that. And but on that, Teams, Skype and Teams, it's always been that way, that the community has built tools. Greg Sheridan is a perfect example of great tools that were in the Skype days. Jeff Shirts and brilliant data on how to configure phones, how to get going. I remember reading that back in the Link days, and he's been doing that right up into Teams. Unfortunately, he's just recently left Poly, which is a real shame. A real breadth of knowledge that we're going to lose, but the community provides.
Poly, I don't know. Poly's always hurt me. I mean, when that whole change sort of started happening, I don't know if it's still the same because I haven't used one in a while, but that subscription service that you had to get for your room systems. There was
a few.
Yeah, there's okay, well, we need a relay service with some sort of random address that needs to be added into your address so that your room can dial in, because you've got a Poly room system now that's compatible with Teams. And so you need this bridging service, and we're only going to charge you $1 gazillion a year to use it, because you didn't want to. You were like, no, I'm not going to go pay for another room system that is going to work. I would prefer to spread my assets, and they knew you were going to do that. I don't even know.
Well, it's also the cost for the room system isn't in the room system itself. It's getting some chum to install it. Having someone hang all the mics and get all the automations and everything to work when you start a meeting, the blinds close, all that sort of stuff. That's the investment there. And but Real Connect for Office 365, the service you're referring to, when that came out, that was a bomb. It was priced ridiculously. It was
terrible.
Poly APAC is never going to speak to me again. But yeah, it was priced per seat, and it was astronomical. And I think they learned very quickly that wasn't going to work, and it's now just per concurrent meeting. So if you've got a couple of pieces of tin, and only 2 of them are concurrently in Teams meetings, then you buy 2 licenses and you're done. It got a lot cheaper, especially as other vendors came to the market where they're offering to. And now that MTR supports direct join to other vendors, it becomes less and less relevant. And to be brutally honest, the main reason that the group series, which are the Polycoms that benefit from this the most, or the trios, couldn't run Teams was just the CPU requirements. The group series has been going since the 2010s, maybe 20 late 40s. So the CPU just didn't have the guts to compress modern codecs like what Teams uses. And the same with the trio, it just didn't have a powerful enough CPU. So they offloaded that to another service, and someone had to pay for that.
Yeah. So then can we ask you what your favorite, okay, let's talk headsets. I see you've got a shirt on. I'm not using my AirPods. So
I see it too often.
Yeah, when it comes to headsets, okay, name a couple that you would recommend.
Well,
because
for those folks who aren't viewing but listening, let's just read out what it says on the shirt.
Yeah.
So I've got a T-shirt that says, "Don't let friends use non-certified devices." It was actually from an ex-Teams MVP, Mark Vail.
Yeah, but it's got AirPods on the top,
yes.
though. Okay, so let's be clear about the dig.
How many times? Let's be brutally honest. How many times have you seen? You're watching the news, you're watching some sort of podcast, just like this one, and some guest joins, and they've got their AirPods in, and then they've got their $20,000 office, their bookshelf with more books than they could ever read behind them, and everything's perfect and immaculate, and they've got their AirPods in, and it's just absolutely atrocious. So, look, my daily drivers, and I'm not being a Polycom shill here, my daily drivers are my 8200s. So these are Polycom 8200s, mainly because they've got the beamforming mics on the front. So unlike the 6200 that I'm wearing at the moment, it moves with your head. So the 6200s had a problem where if you turned your head, no one could hear you. Whereas the 82s solved that problem.
And you haven't had any issues with replacing the ear cups?
On my second pair of ear cups, apparently there is a fix in the works for that. But look, I have seen something in the pipeline that I can't really comment on officially. Okay. It will be very cool when it comes out.
Fantastic.
If it was to come out. They've recently refreshed. So there's the Voyager. There's the new version of the Voyager, which I have a video shot for. I just haven't edited yet because I hate editing. I love filming stuff. I hate editing. It's like a photographer. It's 20% shooting photos and 80% editing. I despise it. But I do look at a fair few headsets, but I do like the 62s because you can be quite spacious. If you're wanting perfect audio quality and you don't mind a cable, Jabra have some great stuff now. And again, if you're looking for audio quality, stay away from cordless, especially Bluetooth cordless. There's only so much processing power they can stick in the earphone. It's not bandwidth, it's the issue. The more compression the headphone has to do, the faster it goes flat. So they don't use very efficient compression algorithms, so they get their long battery life. But if you want high quality sound, then a corded headset all the way, and just any of the certified corded ones are going to sound a million times better than cordless. Even though we don't like them.
Just to touch on the earbuds thing, right? I use earbuds almost daily on my when I'm on Teams. But I also use a Mac though, right? And I feel like that does make the difference. All three of us are. If using earbuds on a Mac, it just works. It's the challenge is when you try and use an Apple device on Windows, it just doesn't. And I had a call just a few weeks ago with Jay Gondrotho, who we had on the show a few episodes ago, and we were just having a catch up, and he just could not get his earbuds to work, and it was the funniest thing because I said, "Are you using Windows or Mac?" And he was like, "Windows." I'm like, "It's never going to work. Just stop."
Yeah.
So we rescheduled the call actually because it I don't know if they, anyway. I do feel like the earbuds do work much better if you actually are using a Mac.
Well, and that's the same with any headset. I mean, you buy a headset from any of the vendors, whether Jabra, Yeelink, Poly, any of those sorts of things, they will include this, one of these that's bespoke to them. Use it.
Yes.
It's in the box for a reason. Because it'll manage the Bluetooth connection for you. It typically does a better Bluetooth connection than whatever is in your PC. Keeping in mind, whatever's in your laptop's crammed in there with your cellular modem, your Wi-Fi modem, everything else. You're probably on Wi-Fi at the same time as you're trying to use Bluetooth. It's probably the same radio.
Your mouse and keyboard.
Yeah. The Windows Bluetooth stack has not been great over the years. I mean, there has been a lot of improvement, but there has been a very good reason. For the longest time, the product group has said, if you want to use a wireless device, it must use one of these dongles. Even now with Bluetooth, some PCs are blacklisted. So if you call up with a support case and you've got a particular model, they'll just say, yeah, those headphones and that PC are not going to work together. You need to use the dongle.
Where is
including some Surface devices.
What?
Yep. Yeah, just the way that the Surface is built. So if you look at Surface, it's basically a steel box. It's not ideal for microwave energy, right? And Bluetooth is 2.4 gigahertz. It's basically microwaves. It's not great for efficiency. So that's where your dongles come in. They're designed specifically to keep that connection. Anyone who was in the internet in the 90s will remember that when USB modems came out, dial-up modems, we always used to say a real modem worked better. Because if your PC was busy for just a second while the USB modem was doing stuff, that was it. Your internet connection dropped. And it's the same with your earbuds. Use your dongle. If you've given one, use it. Make sure it's plugged directly into your PC or your laptop, not through 20 hubs or in a monitor or buried behind something. Straight into your laptop. You'll find the experience a million times better.
And that is the title of the show, guys. Use your dongle.
With 4 kids, I did. Trust me, I did.
I was just about to say, you talk about internet connections, and I was going to say, so since moving back to Australia, I have a new gripe, a new thing that gets me, right? And it's the state of internet in this country. Like I was away for 8 years, and I feel like we've gone backwards in 8 years that I was away, because the no broadband network doesn't really give us much broadband at all.
I've got a gigabit where I am. It's brilliant.
You're lucky, because I'm lucky to get 54 megs on mine.
Wow.
And so it's horrible. So I have behind me there.
Yeah.
I have a Starlink. Switch? Yeah, I have a Starlink connection as well. That is a little bit. It's actually really good in that I can get about 200, 220 out of it down, but it's not consistent. Awesome. It's not consistent, and that's the problem. Like, if you run a speed test, like, 5 minutes in 5-minute increments, you're going to get like 200, 280, maybe 60, because obviously it's the thing's moving all the time. But it's still, if you lived in a really dodgy area, I think it would be a godsend. But and the other problem is you can't do, because of the way they do carrier net, you can't do publishing of any sort, right? So you can't try, and that's also, I guess, somewhat limiting as well. So I have the 2 connections, but man, my NBN connection is really horrible. Hopefully we won't.
Does depend on your provider as well. Make sure you're with a decent provider that buys enough bandwidth. The provider I'm with, I'm an investor in, so I don't want to mention them because I feel it's a conflict of interest. Your provider is a very big difference. If you go buy from, some of the big brands, they're just going to give you a contended connection because, hey, we met our speed test at 2:00 in the morning. It's fine. Does make a difference.
Yes, there's one. What's interesting about one of them is when my wife set this up, when Carmen got back, I wasn't here yet, so she just bought a modem from the ISP. So the ISP shipped us a modem. It worked. we've changed ISPs, but we can't update the firmware on the modem because they have their own version of the firmware and they lock you out. So you can't. It just
drives me
it's
nuts.
Like the funniest thing, because now I literally have to go throw that thing in the bin at some point. Because anyway, it's funny. I'm going way off topic here now, but you just kind of reminded me of my reason to complain. I have to complain on every, Warren cracks jokes on episodes, and I complain. So,
I can complain if you want to complain. I'm great at complaining.
Actually, I have a question for James, if I may, and it's about James. And there may be some complaining in that one as you answer the question, James. And it's, how does James Arber become the UCMadScientist? And how did you get your style in setting phones on fire and installing DOSBox on SPCs? Where's the style component from your publishing come from?
I suppose it's mostly about the fact that I've never ever taken. I've always pulled things apart. I've always tinkered. When I was a 3-year-old, I remember getting told off. I pulled apart my father's amplifier on the bedroom floor. I got in a lot of trouble for that. So I've always been around technology, and I've always gone, how can I make technology do what I want it to do? Not being told what I can do. If I hold my tongue at the right angle, and if I do this and if I do that, it'll work. And it might be a bit janky, but it'll do what I want it to do. And it might not be what it says on the sticker that it can do, but if it solves my problem, that's how it does it. And these solutions sort of just kept getting weirder and weirder, and it was sort of like, well, you're kind of a mad scientist in this regard, making things do what it shouldn't do. So, from Skype for Business days, we would make, I had wrote an app that would automatically sign people in and out of response groups based on their location and stuff. And it's not officially supported, but we could make it work. And that's sort of where it came with. And also because I needed to change my name because I had Skype for B admin. And so it would come, everybody would read it as Skype for bad min. So I needed to change my name, and that made sense. I was sort of a bit crazy, sort of a bit. I've always been a bit nuts, and bending technology to do what I want it to do, not the other way around. And that's something I ask everybody who's listening to this. If you're working in IT, if you're there helping a business, you're not the department of no. You are there to make the business succeed. If someone comes to you and says, "Can we do this?" It is your job to make it work. It is not your job to go, "No, it doesn't do that." Find a way to make it work. That's why you're in that job.
Definitely.
I agree. I think that's a very good point.
Department of No.
Department of No. Yeah.
Otherwise,
my old man was a sysadmin, and he was always called the Department of No. Can I have a mouse pad? No.
Or the networking team, right?
Yep. So, so you tell us about your blog though, because I love your blog. Whenever I find stuff on there, I go into down the rabbit hole so quickly on your blog.
Oh, no.
I spent like an hour yesterday reading about your exploits with your Synology over like New Year's or whatever.
When it did crash, yeah.
So
Synology did not like that article.
But I bet. But you do unboxing type, review type content as well, right? So if someone's really, really interested in like a particular brand or type of headset or whatnot, you probably have done a review or something on those as well.
Yeah, I try and throw those on YouTube now. I find that you get a bit more engagement. Like I did a review of a high-end Logitech camera. I forgot what it's called. It was like a 10 times zoom pan-tilt zoom.
Super memorable, clearly.
Yeah,
made a great impression.
Well, no, it's one of my highest rated videos. I get questions on it all the time. I haven't seen that camera in 3 years because it was a loaner unit, but heaps of engagement. That's really good because people are really active engaging on YouTube. I find the blog is very sterile. Also, the blog gets hit by spam bots a lot. But the blog actually started as I was a sysadmin at the time, and I really just wanted to get a rant out. So I originally started out as jarofrant.com. And it was a fact of, a business that I was working for at the time. carrying on about their business continuity process and how everything needed to be tested, and they did everything to the 9 yards and tested everything. And one night their UPS blew up. So literally smoke coming out of batteries. UPS goes, no, that's it, off. Entire server room shuts down. Okay, cool. And of course, I've got the phone call. I'm on call, and I've belted into Collingwood as fast as I possibly can, only to find my access card doesn't work because the server room's off, so I can't get into the building. And I had to drive from Collingwood to Lilydale, so that's an hour drive, to go get someone else who had a key, and then drive back, to try and get this place up and running. And I was just a case of, everybody rants about the fact that you don't have enough backups, you don't have enough this. Well, do we actually practice? Do we test these things? And that's sort of where the blog started. And then I found my feet from there, started reviewing things and started putting my own spin on stuff from there.
Love it.
Very cool. So I guess as we kind of approach the end of the show anyway, do you want to, how do people find you? What's the easiest way? Twitter, obviously, I know you're quite active on Twitter, and we can kind of put these all in the show notes. But the blog, UCMadScientist.com, correct?
Yeah, so UCMadScientist.com, at UCMadScientist on Twitter. I'm very active on Twitter. Be aware, if you follow me, I will occasionally post some My Little Pony stuff. I grew up, I watched with the kids.
Can you talk about that? Because I've noticed that theme and I do not understand it.
Are you a brony?
Yes, I'm a brony. Well and truly. I'm very proud of it. There you go. For anyone who's that way, for anyone who's just listening, I'm showing off a brony tattoo. I started watching the show with my daughters, and that particular generation, the last generation, was written by Lauren Faust, who did Powerpuff Girls as well. And it was written really as a really decent, engaging show, not just as a, look, flashy colours, buy our toys. And so it was something that I really enjoyed with the kids, and there's a culture around it, and I sort of got sucked in.
I definitely have noticed the My Little Pony stuff, but I couldn't figure out what it was. I just figured it was a weird coincidence.
No, that's my shtick. So there's that tattoo, and the other one's Destiny. So I play a fair bit of Destiny as well. So yeah, if you're trying to find me, if either I'm on Twitter or I'm probably playing Destiny.
Warren, I think it's only time that you unveil the sleeve.
Oh no, my sleeve starts at one end and ends at the other. Lots to talk about there. However, I do have a Microsoft tattoo that I do have.
And an Apple tattoo.
Yeah. So
I haven't quite gotten that far yet.
Is the one over the other one? Like, have you crossed that one with the other? Oh, okay.
They're like all placed nicely. There's a Linux penguin. There's the old Think Different logo, the one of the colors for Apple, and then the Microsoft logo from when I became an MVP. That was an important thing for me. So,
right.
So it's all there.
Have you got the Cloud Architects one yet?
Hey?
Have you got a Cloud Architects one yet?
Maybe.
I've got one Kubernetes tattoo. Where's the Kubernetes tattoo?
Hey? No, I don't know. I think Kubernetes may be a fad. I think eventually Kubernetes is going to change. I don't know how long. I don't know. We'll see. But that's another thing that's also pretty cool, is the fact that Teams runs on Kubernetes, right? So if we have to think about how quickly we were able to scale during COVID, that 300 million, AKS works, pal. It just does. So, you got to think about, you don't need like a big fat Skype for Business server anymore. It's all sort of starting to containerize, and you can create these big pockets of things and stuff. And, something that also tweaked my interest recently is sort of, you've got Power Platform now as well, right? So Power Platform then plugs into Teams, and then you can do Power Platform administration of Azure, right, using Teams. So you're enabling the user to deploy resources inside of Azure through Teams as well, right? So that whole UC side of things is really, really being taken to the next level here. You know, if you look at some of the build demos where the guys like do demos of, you know, some dude calling a hospital and that gets rigged up to there and that gets rigged up to there. I mean, it's like you said, it's no longer just a phone call, man. It's all just all the
Although
time.
there is a parallel universe that still exists around Skype for business on premises. And
Well,
I'm wondering if we should do a show on that.
Yeah, I think so. I think we need to talk about, actually, I think we've got a couple of episodes like that. So the future of the Exchange server.
Yeah, we can do one on that. Actually,
The future,
Skype
the future of a
of
Skype for Business server, and if they're ever going to go away. And yeah.
James says no.
James has some
I
thoughts.
don't see it going away anytime soon. There are just environments still to this day that can't. Mine sites, for example, are typically pretty hard. So I did a mine site deployment last year. You know, Teams just isn't, until internet connectivity is ubiquitous worldwide.
Yeah,
and security is less of a concern. It just, there will still be a place for on-prem products.
Yep.
Same as with Exchange. Like if you've got information that's outside the business's borders, that could be a concern. You know, you just got to look at what happened to Egypt a couple of years ago, where someone makes a decision, bang, they disable routing for Egypt, and suddenly Egypt's off the internet.
Yep.
You know, I said recently, maybe the same will happen in Russia. Your business couldn't rely on that. Like, cool. If some order came into Australia to say you're not allowed to, stop broadcasting all routes for some reason, your business then stops. It's extremely unlikely, and you would have more things to worry about than your phone's not working. But some businesses can't accept that risk, and they still want on-premise infrastructure.
Well, that's assuming that Australia has enough power to run their own data centers.
That's only a problem if you're up north. So, Chris, I'm pretty sure I have a spare bedroom if you get stuck. I also have better internet.
What's so funny is that last winter when I was living in Texas, we had all sorts of issues with power.
Oh,
as well.
no.
I mean, and so it's kind of like this weird deja vu moment, because now I'm here and I'm like, really? I just moved away from that, and now I'm back in this, like, where the only thing that is on the news at the moment is Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, and then power crisis. Like it's
well,
so Warren and I would like to suggest
bad, right?
we could probably lend you some news topics of our own, because we've been seeing this lack of power thing for a few years.
For a little while, yeah. Fair enough. Well, thank you very much, guys. James, awesome having you on the show. Hey, feel free to come back anytime you want. I'll
definitely come back for that Skype one.
Absolutely. Sure. We'll do it, and obviously, just if anything, if you're doing anything awesome, we'll just amplify it for you, man. Because I absolutely love what you do. So it's great having you on the show.
Yeah, thank you.
No, thank you. And I suppose if you want something awesome, something I'm doing at the moment is I'm reverse engineering the Teams SIP gateway. So the idea is that Teams will let you use a traditional SIP phone that you might have in a deployment directly with Teams, instead of having to buy a specific Teams phone. At the moment, it's only a few certified devices, but I have been successful in tricking the gateway so far to work with other devices. So we may have a proper solution for paging at some point in the future.
That's
so
cool.
Do you have that? Are you sort of releasing that through GitHub or something, or how are you?
At the moment, it's just research phase.
Okay.
I did write the first part of that article over on UCMadScientist.com.
Okay.
And I explain how the phone goes through its process of validating itself with O365 and O365 checking it's actually a phone. They do a fair bit of checking there, actually. But yeah, part 2 of that will be how we trick it a bit further and get SIP credentials and go from there.
Very cool.
Sounds like a meat love fest when it comes to tricking things, right?
And it's clearly not supported.
Very much not supported. So if it doesn't work, it's on you.
Come on, when is a good supportability statement stopped us from doing anything?
True.
What's the reason it says mad scientist down there?
Oh, awesome, guys. Great chatting to you, and we'll see you on the next one.
For sure.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.